Hello and welcome back to Crochet and Copy for part 3 of Teddy the Fox. My name is Judy. Today we're going to complete putting Teddy the Fox together. Let's get started. I just wanted to show you how all our parts are or how they look before we attach them together or sew them on together as you like. And this is how it is. What I like to do first is to attach the nose because the head is not connected to the body yet, and I work with it a little better that way. So this is the inside, how it looks. No, it's not a lot of room in there, but I just try as best as I can to put a little stuff in, just help hold it. For me, I think it keeps it a little sturdier. So if you could get it in there, fine. If not, it's still fine too. So I have my yarn needle, and then what I'm going to do is just like we're going to go do the next stitch as a single crochet. I just pull my yarn needle into the center of it and bring it over. So there you go with my yarn, and I would attach this part to like the bottom of, to make it be the bottom of the nose. So remember the little nose could wiggle a little bit, so don't worry that if it's you're not sewing it on properly, we could adjust it. So now we put our nose to the center between the eyes, or safety eyes, and then you have your sewing pins, and we're just going to see how he looks with the nose at this point, and then we're going to see if we want to attach it to the head at this distance, and does it look straight towards the eye and everything. So play around with it, and then when you get it center, let's sew it on. I have my nose, like if you see the eyes when we did it in the rows, when we put it, it's in the middle of the row, so I just put it just above that row that we have the eyes ending off, and that's where I think it looks nice right there and centered. So now what I do to start sewing it on, since the head is not attached yet, I just take my yarn needle and I go through the whole thickness of his head, and I go through and pull it out so he is attached that way, and I come back out the whole head and make sure I try to pick up, because what I'm going to do at this point is we're going to grab like the post of our stitch that we were working on. So when you come out, you know, it's just going to take a little bit for you to get it working. So by doing that, it kind of anchored the little head tighter onto the, I should say the nose onto the head better by doing that. That's what I've found, and it hides the stitches better too. So what we're going to do is just going to go in a continuous round. I like to go, since we're on the top now, we're going to go from the top and just go through the 2 loops that we have from our the stitches. Pick them up, see they have the 2 loops here that we were working with, and then just go through that. So now we have our 2 yarn together, pull it, so you kind of make it as seamless as we can. And then now you go pick up one of the orange yarn, try to go underneath, because you're going to come back out and you're going to go into the next stitch, the double here from the orange, like inside the nose, and then you have your double stitches here. You're going to go through. So that's the pattern we're going to use for putting it on the nose. You're just going to pull up a loop and keep on going around and make it as neat as you can to do it. And let's complete our little nose to our head. Now we're back where we started from. Finish completing. So I go, since the head is not attached to the body yet, go into our nose, the white part, because we want to hide our stitches where we sew it on, and go through the head because we're going to hide the remaining of our So this is our nose attached to our head. I think it came out good so far. See, when we did it that way, we don't have the white showing against the orange. Came out pretty good. So now we're going to attach the head to the body. So for the tail that I have for the head, I just take my hook and I go into the stitch like we're going to make a next single crochet if we were still working with the head, and just pull it. And there, that's how it looks. And just poke it inside. There you go. And so now I have my yarn needle with my attached to my body, and we're going to sew it on. So now what I'm going to do first is go into that stitch right here and just pull my yarn through it, my yarn needle. And then that's how it looks. We're going to line up as best as we can our head with our body. You see the back. Okay, we see the front of it, and then the back, we're going to attach the part that we start into the back of our head. And we're going to center it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go into like where we pull our yarn through with our hook. We're going to go into the second stitch next to it. We're going to go through, see, we're going through it like we're making the single crochet in the middle of our stitch. Then we go back down. We use the next stitch here. And then we follow along as we go. With the first one is going to be a little awkward to do because your yarn is coming from here. So now we're going to go into the next stitch in the middle of it. Pull it out. So we're trying to grab, when we're sewing it on, we're working with the top part of our stitches. And try to keep your stitches as tight as you go along so it could stay, the head and the body could connect. I know it's a little awkward because you have a little space that you're working in to do this, so but just keep on working at it. And remember, it's like you go in to, hopefully I'm showing you right, you can see it, this middle of the stitches. So now I would say I'm basically at the last part of our stitch because we're back where we started. I'm trying to hide it as best as we can to make the seams look nice and seamless. Okay, so that's how it looks with his little head attached to his body. So now to hide it, you just go in and go as deep as you can and find a spot. I like to go as deep as I can. I want to stay in the back. And that's how it looks. Now I'm going to cut this off because we hide it inside the body. There we have him so far. Looking pretty good, I think. Now we're going to attach our legs to our body. So what I do first is try to line it up as best as I can with our body. I'm going to tilt it, and of course this is where our sewing pins come in handy because we could adjust it when we do the safety pins and see how it looks. Do the other side. Tilt it a little bit because I try to find the bottom where it lays flat against the surface, and just tilt it a little bit and then see if I match it up. If not, I gotta adjust it. And then we could line it up with the different markers we have. See, it's a little lopsided, so we're going to play with it and we're going to line it up. We're going to follow along as we go so we center it. Now I've attached it to where it looks good for the legs to be, and one I have facing, I would say, the tail up, and the other one facing down. Why? In the sense of the shape of the little paw matches, because they're sitting up. He could sit up now when you attach the legs, but we haven't attached it yet. We just used our sewing pins to do that. So let's get started and attaching it to the body. So now I have my yarn needle, and then there's a little spot right to the top of our leg there. So what I'm going to do is just take my yarn needle and weave it into that like empty space. So I guess you want to say it's an empty space, so that I could start sewing on. There you go. Attach our little legs. So now you go in and you look for a stitch that's like underneath almost, so we could attach it on. Hopefully you're seeing what I'm doing with the camera angle. And then I'm going to come back up into the top stitch of our little leg. And there you go, we've put our first stitch on. So let's keep on going into that pattern of using just like the top of our stitches that we made from when we close up our legs. We made it to the end, and that's how it looks. I like to go back and do it a little bit more so it attached nicely. Okay, now so I'm back up top. I'm gonna just hide it, my tail, and then I'm gonna cut it off, and then I'll meet you at the next little legs, and we're going to sew it on. So remember to hide it. You go in and pull it out, cut it off I should say. So you could go in your stitch like that, because as I said, it's good with your yarn needle. You could do that, go into it and just pull it out, and then we cut it. I'll meet you at the next little legs. Okay, so now our second little leg. So again, like that empty space that we had here, I'm just going to put my yarn needle through it. And there you go. So now we could start attaching little legs to our body. Remember, look for a stitch that's like kind of underneath. Hopefully I'll show you. Okay, I just try to pick up one stitch from what we did, then come back up and go through our single crochet. And remember to try to tighten it as much as you can so it can stay. And alright, at this point what I like is I like to double check my work to make sure they're lined up, they match up, and everything look nice. I put him sit up. Of course you see it this way, but he's sitting up this way, and to make sure they all line up, because now we're going to go back down, and I like to do it again the second time to hold it nice and tight. And this way, like I said, you double check before you really put it on, because at this point it's going to stay on. So double check your work, and because at this point you could take out the stitches we put in so far without have to worry about it. But now we're going back down to make it nice and sturdy, and you won't be able to get it off, I think, at that point. So double check to make sure he lines up, and adjust it what needs to be adjusted. we're back down to where we started. I'm going to hide her tail, go into the actual foot, and again just go as deep as you can and then just pull it out. We're going to cut it off, the remaining of our yarn, and there you go, it's completed. We have our little legs on. All right, let's move on to our next part. Now we're going to do our arms. So just line it up with our legs. Give it a little tilt, a little bit. Of course, mark it, and then we can see. Okay, I think that lines up nicely. Looks pretty good. So we're going to start sewing it on now. Like we have what I'm going to start off with first for the arm. I hope you can see there's like some stitches here. What I'm going to do is go through 2 of them. And just pull it. So that's so I could start sewing, and it looks better to me that way. And just find your little yarn. Like I said, I usually pull up like 1 at a time, so that to me it looks better that way. And then you come back up. Remember too, there's the stitches that we have when we close it up, the top of it. So that's what we're going to do, just pick up the yarn and keep on working. Okay, we're at the last stitch basically for coming back down around our arm, and now we hide it into our arm. And just cut it. That's one arm on. We're going to start with our second arm. Remember that little piece of like that shows the yarn that's over here, the stitch that's hanging by itself, kind of. Usually go through that first. So we're at our last stitch. We're gonna just hide it again to our arm. This is how it looks with our legs and our arms attached. Okay, let's do the ears next. We're going to be attaching our ears. So it's like usually I would do it like 2 rows from the center. So that's 1, 2. And I put the tail to the back. So it's just going to pin it on with our sewing pin. Also too, before I pin it on, I like to give it like a little, I guess, middle to it. I think it looks better when you put on the ears that way. And then pin it on. I'm going to pin it on. Okay, so now we attach the ears with our sewing pins. Remember, you could play around with it till you get it right where it matches up and looks nice, because it's a perfect time to do it, because you can take out the sewing pins as many times as you want to. But like I try to aim for like the center 2 rows, like I said, apart to meet up, and they line up. So we're going to start sewing on our ears. So now we get ready to attach the ears. I have my yarn needle. Now, just wanted to show you this. The stitch that's right here, next to where our yarn is coming, I just go through that. Then I'm going to start attaching the ear. And of course, remember, pull up a yarn, try to go like inside if you possibly can, and then through the 2 loops of yarn that you have. So that's it, and we're going to work with that till we put on the ear. So we're back to the last stitch where we started from. So just going to close up the ears. We're going to do the same thing for the second ear. What you have, and you're going to hide it. So remember to hide your tail inside of our project that we're working on. And then just cut it off, okay? Okay, so far that's how our fox look with its second ear. I didn't show you how to sew on the next ear because I figured by now you got the gist of how to sew it on. But I am going to show you how to do the last part that we have, and that's his little tail. So we're going to sew it on. So let's pin it on first and see how it looks. mentioned when I pin it on, of course, I put the part that we have the yarn that's attached to our little tail. We're going to sew on to our fox, the actual tail, where I put it to the bottom of it. And what I do also too, I try to put it as close as I can to the bottom, that when he sits, it's closer to the ground or to the floor. So we're just going to do the same thing as we've been doing, as in attaching it as we go along. Okay, and keep on working with it. We're going to get it. Okay, so we're at our last stitch, back around to where we were. If you want to, you could do it a couple more times so that it's nice and sturdy, but we're going to hide again our yarn in our tail. We're just going to cut it. Congratulations, you have finished making Teddy the Fox. We did it! Yay! Thank you for watching, and hopefully you had a great time working on it as much as I did, and actually seeing your finished product. You did a great job. You did hard work, right? But anyway, thank you for watching once again, and remember, Teddy can sit up all by himself. So thank you for watching. Bye!